All right, we are recording. I'm going to full screen your presentation and I'll start off with the introduction. So welcome everybody to the Inspire 2022 conference, particularly the breakout session. Today, you guys are all fortunate enough to be getting a presentation by Danny Pehar. I think that's the correct pronunciation.
Perfectly.
Well, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Cole Cianfloni, Term 2 Bit student here at Red River College. And so Danny, with more than 20 years of experience in the cybersecurity industry, has become a pioneer in cybersecurity. As a member of the Forbes Technology Council, Danny is a monthly cybersecurity content contributor. Danny also has worked closely with the FBI and Toronto Police Cyber Task Force and is a part of the board of directors for InfoSec-TO. As a best-selling author and professional keynote speaker, Danny uses his executive security storytelling formula to successfully educate organizations on the ever-relevant world of cybersecurity. He has spoken to audiences and industries throughout North America and Europe. Whether it's providing cybersecurity awareness training to CEOs of Fortune 500 companies, new employees, or even elementary school students, Danny draws on his experience as a comedian and motivational speaker, combining the background with his extensive cybersecurity knowledge and obsession. Danny promises to entertain, empower, and educate for a truly awesome experience, and he is here to inspire all of you today. And with that being said, I'll pass it over to you, Danny.
Beautiful. Thank you very much, Cole. I really appreciate not just the intro, but all the work that you've been doing thus far to get us to this point. So I really want to express my gratitude to you for all of that. But I also want to thank everyone in today's audience. Today, what I'm going to be doing is different than what I normally do. Usually when I'm asked to speak to an audience, I'm asked to speak about a cybersecurity strategy, telling people what to do, how to run their business from that point of view, or even how to protect themselves and discussing, awareness training. But today, I'm not going to be doing that. Today, I'm going to be talking to you guys about how to maximize your career or maximize your business. A lot of what I'm going to be talking about, just simply based on my 20 years, is going to be tied into the world of cybersecurity. But if you listen to a lot of what I'm saying, it is so applicable regardless of what industry you end up going in. So I don't want you to think, if you're sitting here, if you're hearing me talk now, I don't want you to think, well, I don't know if I'm interested in cybersecurity as a career. Maybe I don't want to stay in this session. Trust me, guys, whatever career you go into, what I'm going to be talking about is going to be super applicable. And for those of you guys that are super busy, that are like, listen, man, I don't know if I have time to sit in this, to this session because I got a bunch of other things to do today. Stay at least for the first 20 minutes. I got a couple of zingers that I'm going to throw your way that I promise you will change your life, okay, as they've changed my life. In my 20 years doing business in cybersecurity, I've had a lot of luck. I've met a lot of phenomenal people, just really had an absolute blast. And I've also sold 2 companies and again, worked out quite fortunately for me. And I'm going to be talking about all of that, okay? How to start from the very beginning and how to build from there. Okay, so a little bit about me. Cole gave you some tidbits, a little bit more about me. Cole, if you can go down to the next slide. So I do a lot of work, as Cole had mentioned, with Forbes magazine. I'm a monthly cybersecurity content contributor. A lot of times when I'm talking to businesses about cybersecurity, a lot of the lessons or the information I give could have very well started off as one of the articles, as research for one of my articles. I'm actually going to be talking about that a little bit later on in the session and how relevant that could be for your career, the importance of writing. We're going to get to that in a bit. Next slide, Cole. I also do a lot of work with television, and as my family likes to keep me humble, I remember when I first started working with TV, I was really proud of myself. My family, you got to love family for keeping you humble. They like to remind me that I got on TV years after everyone stopped watching it and nobody cares. But I'll tell you why they do care and why it's going to help you. And I'm even going to talk about how you can get on TV to discuss any topic you want. And next slide. I also do a lot of work, as Cole had mentioned, with law enforcement and the cybersecurity task force of numerous law enforcement agencies. Most of the work that I do is with the Toronto Police Cyber Task Force, but some of the most interesting ones is with the FBI Cyber Task Force. And if we have time, I got a lot of stuff I want to go over with you guys, a lot of really important stuff. If we have time, I'm going to tell you some really funny stories about, what happened with me working with the FBI. Okay. Next slide, please. So what I want to talk about first is, as I promise you, this session is not only going to be about how to succeed in the world of cybersecurity. Yes, that will be parts of my focus simply because that's where I spent the last 20 years, but I am going to be giving you tips way beyond just succeeding in cybersecurity. But that being said, let's talk about why I like cybersecurity. The reason I like it is there is a huge amount of chaos and opportunity coming out of the world of cybercrime. Chaos being, yeah, we know the chaos. We're hearing about it on the news all the time. But the opportunity, because cybercrime keeps growing, there's an opportunity to help people to feel good about what you're doing and literally to never run out of work. If you get in this industry, I guarantee you will always have a job because it keeps growing at a phenomenal rate and people will consistently need your help, right? So some of the reasons I could do a whole hour on just why cybercrime keeps growing and why it's so dynamic. But in the interest of time, I'm just going to talk about in the last few years some of the changes that we've seen that's really changing this world. One is cryptocurrencies. Cryptocurrencies make it so much easier for bad guys to get their hands on their money. This has really beefed up and strengthened the world of cybercrime. Right? The first ever ransomware that was ever done was actually done in 1989, if you can believe that. Somebody sent out a bunch of floppy disks to a bunch of business leaders and basically had said, hey, here's the reason why you want to use the floppy disk. They used the floppy disk, it locked down their device and said, you owe us money and you have to mail it to this P.O. box address and mail a check or you're not getting your money. So two forms of snail mail used in the first ransomware ever, and a lot of ways that the bad guys got caught. But with cryptocurrency, man, this stuff is virtually untraceable, and it really makes it easy for them to turn this into a business. Also, you've got ransomware as a service. So now, if I want to run an organized crime ring, and if I want to have a bunch of people working for me doing cybercrime, they don't even need to be technical. I can just actually buy a bunch of ransomware toolkits and just getting them to make the calls, to send the emails, and use what I have in that toolkit. I had a friend of mine from the law enforcement industry bought one of these toolkits just to research how these guys operate and how this works. And he actually said, and I quote, honestly, I wish my internet service provider had customer service the way these guys do. Because they had an FAQ page, they had a support page, they really made it easy. These guys are operating like a business, which again is why so many of good folks, good citizens, good business need our help. And combine that with the fact that other countries are offering safe havens to cyber criminals is what's making these guys thrive. A lot of countries outside of North America are basically saying, if you're a cyber criminal, as long as you are not coming after us, we'll look the other way. And what this does is this has changed the game with regard to cybersecurity. Cole, next slide, please. So when I say change the game, a lot of times when we think of cyber criminal, this is the image that we think of. And it's good reason that we think of it like that, because if you do a Google image search for cyber criminal or hacker, you're going to see thousands of variations of this exact picture. But the fact of the matter is that's just a stock photo. That's not the real criminal. Let's take a look at the real criminal. Cole, next slide. So this here is not a stock photo. This is what the real criminals look like. This is a screen grab taken from the BBC Tech Scam expose footage. If you do an online search for that title, you're going to see the video where I got this from. And what these guys did was they hacked the security camera footage of a tech scam call center. And look at that picture. Look at all those guys. Look at all that technology. Look at all the headsets. This is a thriving organization. When we think of the one person working alone in the dark with a hoodie, right, we're thinking, they're small. How big could this possibly be? But that is just not the case. This is the case, and this is why so many people out there need our help. And this is why if we get into this business, you will never run out of work because this keeps growing. Okay, so now you might be thinking, okay, Danny, sounds interesting. Sounds like there's an opportunity there. But I don't know, easy for you to say, Danny, that there's an opportunity because, you got Forbes as a background, and you got your TV, and you got your connections. What about me? I'm a student. How can I help someone or how can I get into this business? Well, you know what? I didn't always have those things. Those things are actually somewhat recent victories for me or somewhat recent partnerships for me. where it all started with me, before I ever did anything in cybersecurity, the only credentials that I had when I was looking for a cybersecurity job, I'll tell you what that is. Cole, next slide. That was it. You're looking at my credentials right there. I was the Chuck E. Cheese employee. Specifically, I was the Chuck E. Cheese mascot. If you were at a Chuck E. Cheese in the late 90s and you saw that mouse walking around, patting you on the head or trying to hug you, and you kicked that thing and were rude to that thing, that was me that you were kicking, right? That's what my job was. And the only reason I got into security is not because I had some sort of military background or IT background or tech background, right? I was dating the same girlfriend since high school. And I'm like, you know what? I got to propose to her. We've been together long enough. I need a ring, and I couldn't afford it. I did propose to her, by the way. I did buy that ring, and we are still married. She said yes. But I need a real job. You know, Chuck E. Cheese and doing comedy on the side, it's not cutting it, right? And so I looked for an entry-level job. My only credentials, I didn't know anything about cybersecurity. I didn't even have the internet at home, right? And my only credentials when looking for a job was I wanted it to be in an office. I was tired of restaurants and factories. Those were my only background, is restaurants and factories. And I was sweating. Every job I ever had, I was always sweating. That helmet, you would sweat like crazy wearing that, mouse helmet. And so my credentials was I wanted to be in an office, and hopefully they have air conditioning in that office because I was tired of sweating at work. And so I got a job, super entry level. It was so entry level in cybersecurity. My boss at the time, who I'm still friends with today, had said to me, Danny, we used to have the bottom. This job is underneath the bottom. Therefore, you need to get promoted just to reach the bottom. And I didn't care. It's still better than where I was coming from, right? So I took that entry level job, and the rest for me was history. Now, let me tell you how I did it. So Cole, next slide. So the secret to anything is you've got to bring the value. And I'm really going to be diving into that throughout the session. That is my theme. If you guys have to leave right now, just remember, this is what I'm talking about. That's the essence of what I'm getting at, is you got to bring that value. Okay. So Cole, hit me down with the next slide. And this one's going to have some animation. So I'm going to talk you through this. Yeah. So leave it here for now. Beautiful. So when we talk about bringing the value, if you are legitimately bringing the value to someone that is your desired audience, like your boss or a partner or somebody you're trying to sell your business to or what have you, right? Then really everything else starts to matter less. And what I mean by that is so many people over the years have said to me, hey, Danny, I want to get into cybersecurity. Am I too young? Hey, Danny, I want to get into cybersecurity, but I've been doing this for so long. Am I too old to make that move? Hey, Danny, I want to get into cybersecurity, but do I have enough money? Do I have enough certifications? I always had so many questions about, can I do it? What about this? What about this? And people would position various vulnerabilities. And I would always say, those vulnerabilities don't mean anything. The only question you have to answer is, can you actually bring value to the scenario that you want? That's what people pay for, and that's what gets you hired, and that's what gets you promoted, right? Now, before you can do that, of course, one of the things that you got to get good at is, why don't you, Cole, hit me page down, but hit it twice. There you go. Let's leave it here. Perfect. You got to learn how to market your value. And what I mean by that is you got to convince others of your value. You can be the greatest at bringing value to any situation, but if you can't convince someone that you're the one that can do it, right, it's not going to work for you, okay? But before you can do that, well, how do we do that? Well, Cole, next page or page down, there we go. You got to understand the value your desired audience is looking for. And last page down for this slide, Cole, one more time, there we go, is your repeat. And this is something that I've been doing for 20 years, and I got very, very good at it. One is, so let's start from the top. You got to understand the value your desired audience is looking for. Then, of course, you've got to market your value. What I mean by that is you've got to convince others of your value. Then you got to bring it. You got to bring that value, and you got to repeat. So, guys, this slide right here is what I like to refer to as my $1 million slide. I think I have maybe 2 or 3 more $1 million slides. Take a picture of this, write this down. It might seem overly simple, but I promise you, this is what I've been doing every day for the past 20 years, and it's worked phenomenally well, and it can work for any scenario. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples. And by the way, this doesn't just mean security. Any career you decide to go down, that's what you need to do if you want to be successful. Okay, so let's talk about how to do it, how I did it for security. So Cole, page down. So let's talk about understanding the value. And why don't you go ahead and give me a page down as well. So there's two parts to understanding value and to always understanding value. One, you got to remain current. If you are in a tech industry, if you are in something like cybersecurity or anything technical, you got to stay on top of what's current. Honestly, one of the simplest ways, most basic way to do it, sign up for Google Alerts on your chosen field. For me, cybersecurity, I have signed up for Google Alerts for these 4 words, and I'm telling you, it's been priceless to me because I need to know what people are talking about. Don't let your education end when school finishes. You've got to stay on top of these things, not just new courses, but what are people talking about in the media? Okay, now that's one aspect of it. That's one part of the equation. The other part to understand, Cole, next page, is you got to understand the building blocks of your craft. So I'm only going to talk about cybersecurity. That's the only craft I know. Okay, but whatever your craft is, whether you go down cybersecurity or not, you must understand the building blocks. By understanding the building blocks and combining it with what people are talking about, you will have a powerhouse system. Okay, so the building blocks for cybersecurity, the cybersecurity framework, really, there's 5 points to it. It's to identify, to protect, detect, respond, recover. That's it. Every aspect of cybersecurity fits into one of those 5 pieces. Now, truly understanding those building blocks and truly understanding what's happening in the world, what's happening in the news with regards to my Google alerts, that's what really has allowed me to catapult my career and my business. I'll give you an example. I remember in 2014, I started seeing a lot of news come up about cyber insurance. And what is cyber insurance? It's like regular insurance, except it's meant to pay for this sort of stuff and to help you recover from this sort of stuff. And as soon as I saw that, I was like, holy cow, this is going to be big for my industry. I'm not cyber insurance, I'm cybersecurity, but this is going to be big for me. And I got to know this really, really well, and I got to start talking about this. And I had a lot of cybersecurity friends, engineers, what have you, all telling me, Danny, why are you bothering with this? Why are you talking about this? Why are you studying this? They're like, it's got nothing to do with cybersecurity. It's a completely different industry. That's insurance, we're security. I'm like, guys, you are missing the building blocks of your craft. Look at that last one, recover. What do we have that can help somebody recover from a financial attack if we don't have insurance? It might not technically be a cybersecurity product, but I'm telling you, it fits into our framework. This is going to matter to us. And the first big company that I sold had to do with cyber insurance. The second company that I sold in the cybersecurity world didn't have to do with cyber insurance, but it was purchased by a cyber insurance company. So again, understanding what my desired audience wants really helped me quite a bit. Okay, so let's talk about how to take that to the next level. So Cole, next slide, please. And one more time, so let's talk about marketing your value. Now, when we talk about marketing your value, before I get to the fancy stuff, before I get to social media, before I get to TV, let's talk about it at a very basic level. A very basic level how to market your value is, before we get fancy, let's simply talk about, how do I actually talk about it? How do I put it in an email? How do I discuss it with somebody? And the best way that you can do this, that you can address any topic you want, is to follow this formula right here. And you know, I said to you guys, I have a couple of $1 million slides. This is my other $1 million slide. Take a picture of this and follow along, because again, this is priceless. So more than $1 million, this is priceless. Okay, so the first part, what are the topics of interest your audience needs to know? We discussed how to figure that out. 1, stay on top of what's current. Get those alerts. And 2, stay on top of the building blocks of your craft. Knowing those 2 things and knowing how to put them together, you will always know what your audience wants to know. That's one part of the equation. But now let's talk about how to market it. Once you know what the topic is, do some research and find out what are the 4 to 5 main questions that everybody wants to know. How do you find this out? You literally Google it and say, hey, cyber insurance, what are the 4 most popular questions? And it will tell you what the 4 most popular questions are. It's that simple. Once you have those 4 or 5 main questions, you just do the same thing. You Google it to get the answers to those questions. And once you have the answers to those questions, you position that as how you're going to get a meeting with anybody you want to talk about that. I'll give you an example of what I did. Next slide. So When I started talking about cyber insurance, I literally followed my own advice, did some research on what the most popular questions were, and I literally would put that in emails. I would put that in conversations, in phone calls, and voicemails, and I'd say, hey, Danny Pehar here. I want to talk to you about cyber insurance. If you take a meeting with me, if you have this conversation with me, I'm going to be answering 5 questions for you. My 5 questions are, what is cyber insurance? What does cyber insurance cover? What doesn't it cover? Is cyber insurance worth it? How do I get cyber insurance? And every single person that I did that with, they all wanted to talk to me. It's that simple, guys. Find the topic of interest, find out what are the 5 questions anyone wants to know, and tell them you've got the answers, and you will talk to anybody you want to talk to. Now, did anyone ask me my credentials? Did anyone say, Danny, how long have you been doing cyber insurance? Because I wasn't. This is new to me, right? Nobody cared who I was, because what they were thinking is he's the guy that's going to answer these 5 questions. So that's who he is, right? Let's give you another example. Let's go down one more, Cole. So I remember in November of 2018, November 1st of 2018, PIPEDA was introducing a new set of laws that were taking effect on November 1st, 2018. How did I know that these laws were coming out? Because of my Google alerts. I was always staying on top of things, right? Why did I think this was important to me? Because within the building blocks of my craft, one of the other words is recover, or respond rather, not recover, respond. And PIPEDA, this particular law, was a law in how you need to respond with regards to when your company's been breached. So again, using my own advice, keeping on top of what's current with Google, and finding out, does that tie back into the building blocks of my craft and respond? Yeah, it does. I'm like, this is going to be huge. And so what I did was, there was a show in Toronto, probably the biggest security show in Toronto is called Sector. And I submitted a talk track, and I said, I'm going to be talking about the PIPEDA changes, and I'm going to be answering the following 5 questions. That was it. Didn't say anything else. Didn't have to talk about my expertise. I simply said, if you want to know who I am, this is who I am. I'm the guy that's going to answer these 5 questions. My session was so packed. I got in there. There was standing room only. I for a second thought of it. I don't think this is my session, right? Again, this was before Forbes. This was before a bunch of other things that I had in my toolkit, but it was simply knowing how to market what it is and how to convince others of my value. I got so much business out of that one talk. It was beautiful. Okay. So guys, again, understand that value, learn how to talk about it. And the way to talk about it is find out what are the 4 or 5 questions that people want to know about it, and find the answers, and then use that as your pitch to get a conversation with anybody you want. Okay, let's go to the next slide, Cole. So now let's talk about taking that to the next level. I talked about some basic marketing from the point of view of how to talk about it. But now let's talk about, we're going to get fancy now. Okay, let's talk about the power of social media. Okay, thank you, Cole. So guys, really, really simple. If I was to simplify the whole thing and kind of end my social media here is you want to post good content, you want to post it frequently. You do that, and the doors that are going to open for you are going to be absolutely ridiculous. What I love about social media is this is where bringing the value, marketing the value, convincing others of your value all become one. I'll tell you a quick story. When I did my second business, I went to an investor, and that I knew he had money. I knew he had the money that I needed. I knew he had the contacts that I needed. And basically, I had asked him for over $1 million. And we had 3 very easygoing conversations about it. One of them was over dinner. One of them was over coffee. And the next one, I had a contract in hand, and I had everything that I wanted. And I used that investment that we ended up building, and we sold that business to a multi-billion-dollar insurance company. And I was surprised at how easily I got that money, because this person that I was asking for the money had never actually seen me do what I was saying we're going to build. I had no actual proof of my building what I was going to do. And we worked together. We liked each other. We knew of each other. But other than that, I had no proof that I can do what I was claiming that I was going to do. And I asked him about that afterwards. And after I got the money, I asked him about it. And I said, why did you trust me? And he goes, you know what, Danny, it wasn't your idea that I loved. It wasn't even you that I loved. It was your brand. That's what I was investing in. And my brand, as far as he knew it, was all from social media, specifically from LinkedIn. Okay, so let's talk about that. How do you post good content, and how do you do it frequently? We're all busy. We're all doing different things. That seems like a lot of work. I'll tell you how you're going to do it. So Cole, next slide. Now this one here, Cole's got some animation. So we're going to pull this down little by little. Do the first step. Yeah, there you go. So I'm going to talk, what I like to do is I like to start off by writing one article. That's the basis of where I get the bulk of my content from. And I'm going to talk about how, and you might be thinking, but I'm not a writer. How am I going to write an article, right? The easiest article you've ever written is a tip article, right? The reason is a tip article, really, there's only 3 pieces to it. There's the intro. You look at this. This is legitimately from one of my articles that was on Forbes. It's a 3-sentence intro, right? And it's talking about 9 steps to ensure cybersecurity while traveling, okay? So that's literally 3 sentences. I'll read it. Many of us are leaving the year 2020 with a yearning and hope for more travel in 2021. Of course, as exciting as a good getaway is, it's important to remember that traveling can also make us more vulnerable to cyber attacks. With that said, here are 9 steps, yada, yada, okay? So your first is your intro. Then pull down the next one, Cole. Then the next one are your tips. Just in the interest of space, in the interest of 9, I'm only going to pull up one of the tips, right? But you do some research, very easy to write about tips. Very easy for anyone who has that technical background to write tips about what it is that they're talking about. And then the last paragraph is, you guessed it, Cole, one more. The last one is your conclusion. It's simply wrapping up. It's kind of a recap of the opening paragraph. That's it. And you've got a very, very easy to write, with a little minimal research, easy to write article. Okay, so why is having one article important for you? And by the way, you don't have to look to publish it on a major publication. It doesn't have to be on Forbes. You can publish this on LinkedIn, which they will let you do. You can publish this on a friend's blog. You can publish this wherever, on your own blog, wherever you want, okay? But having that one article, Cole, go to the next slide, please. It automatically gives you 3 easy posts. Your first post is introducing your article on wherever you put the link is. Maybe it's a LinkedIn article. Maybe it's an article on your friend's blog, your blog, what have you, right? Hey guys, really proud to introduce my latest article. Here's the link to that blog. Then a couple weeks later or a couple months later, you literally take that same article, you put it on a Word document, and now instead of putting it somewhere that it can be linked to, you upload it as a white paper resource. And you say, for anyone that needs a white paper resource document on the following topic, here's my PDF available right here. I do that all the time, and different people will see it, and different people will like the links, different people will like the PDF, right? But it's the same material, but I'm getting more work out of it. And then the last one is, you can put it in an infographic. So cool, I'm going to show you what I mean by that. Next slide, please. So here's what I did. This is from an article that I did on public Wi-Fi safety tips. And it was a tip article. Literally, I took this, I built this in PowerPoint. Very, very easy to do. I literally just extracted all of the tips, and across the bottom, I put my conclusion, and that's it. And so now one article, I got 3 slick posts out of it. But then, next slide, Cole. Each tip becomes its own post. So now those 9 tips, I put them separately at different times, and that becomes its own post. So next slide. When I first did my own post, a post of a tip, I thought, is that too small? Is that too junior? But you know what? People loved it. You got over 1,000 views. And by the way, one of those faces across the bottom that had liked it was one of my investors. Doing a small tip post, people like it because it's easy to read, right? So now, actually, let's go to the next slide, Cole. So now what you can also do is each of those posts, you can do a quick video clip, right? Do some research online about how to do, an easy video, right? And basically, I'm like, hey guys, Danny Pehar here with my cybersecurity tip videos. My tip for this week is blah, 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 blah. And I literally give that same tip that I've already posted on. Different people see it, different people like it. And what I also do is I'll actually then take again that same tip, and I even turn it into a comic. This one's a little bit more challenging. Not everyone can do this next one. But Cole, why don't you go to the next slide? And so this is from that travel article where I talk about the importance of destroying your boarding pass. And literally, I put the tip there. I put a comic that kind of illustrates it. Beautiful, right? It goes for a very popular post. And Cole, give me another page down, please. So now you can turn one tip article of 9 posts, a 9 tip article into 30 posts, which means if you only do one article a month, again, you're only talking about creating one new material article a month, you can actually conceivably get up to 360 posts, right? All the while you're beefing up your library. Now, you might be thinking, Danny, I am never going to make a video. I'm never posting a video of myself online because I'm just not comfortable. That's cool, right? You might be thinking, Danny, I have no design capabilities whatsoever. I'm never going to make a comic. that's cool too. If you just strip away what I talked about those 3 easy posts plus your 9 tip posts, that's still, you're getting 12 posts from one article. 12 times 12, that's 144 a year. When I got that investor to give me over $1 million for this thing that we ended up building and selling, I was doing 96 posts a year, right? So again, very, very easy to maximize your value and to get other people to notice your brand, right? Now, let's talk about the importance of beefing up that value beyond just social media, right? You can go, Cole, next down. So this is a paragraph from one of my articles that I did after already doing a few months of doing a bunch of articles. And you'll notice that within that paragraph, you'll notice that there are hyperlinked words or terms, right? Sensitive information is a hyperlinked term. Your data is extremely vulnerable. That's hyperlinked. Social media, that's hyperlinked. I'm hyperlinking to other articles that I have written. Because I've been doing this for so long, I could now be my own reference point. I don't need to reference other articles or other studies or other people. I'm now referencing me. Again, all the while increasing that brand, right? But the other thing is when you're talking to someone and they say, hey, Danny, nice talking to you. By the way, do you think you could help me? Do you have any material on the following? Cole, next slide. I've had people ask me, Danny, do you have a comic on the following? And I'll say, sure, I have time, whatever you need, right? Cole, next slide. Or they'll say, Danny, do you have a video that you can help me with? Yeah, you know what? Here's my library. I've got it. One more time, Cole. Or Danny, do you have a white paper, article on? Yeah, actually, I have an entire library that I can help you with. All the while, remember what I said about bringing that value and convincing others of your value? Now, when they're working with you, it's like, man, I love working with this person because when I work with them, they have everything that I need, right? And that really is what it's all about. And this all really started with trying to beef up my social media, but inadvertently, I realized, holy cow, I just created a whole library for myself just doing my one article a month and turning that into whatever else I can turn it into, right? Cool, one more time. So now let's talk about, while you're beefing up your library, let's also talk about making the use out of somebody else's content. If you do it right, that can work really, really well for you, right? Let's go next slide. So this is a friend of mine, Greg Markell. He's the president of Ridge Canada, a phenomenal organization doing really well for itself. And he forwarded one of my posts. And so he goes on to say, this is a really useful tidbit. As usual, Danny Pehar, he tags me in it and he hashtags cyber insurance. Now, the funny thing is, my post has nothing to do with cyber insurance. I'm not talking about cyber insurance. He is a cyber insurance guy, though. Okay, so that makes sense. He's forwarding something that he believes will be useful to his people, and he's hashtagging it with something that's important to him. Beautiful way to do it, okay? Now, let me show you how that benefited him. Next page. So Brad Neal is a vice president of an organization that is very important to Greg Markell. Now, Brad Neal saw Greg Markell's forwarding of my post, and he thanks Greg for it. You'll notice, he goes, great tip. Thanks, Greg Markell, for highlighting this. You'll notice he's not thanking me, although I'm the originator of that content. The reason he's not thanking me is because at the time, we didn't know each other. We do since know each other. I then did reach out to him afterwards. That's why it says first. But at the time, he didn't know who I was. And I wasn't the one that brought it to his attention. Greg Markell was the one that brought it to his attention, right? So guys, you can maximize. It doesn't have to just be your work. You're not building a library by doing it this way. But if you are showing that value, Greg Markell was showing Brad that value by forwarding my stuff, okay? And he's the one that got thanked for it because he's the one that showed it to Brad, not me, right? Beautiful. It's real proof that this stuff does work if we show other people that value, right? Next page. So a couple of basics. If you haven't already, or if it's not done automatically for you, make sure you customize your LinkedIn URL and make sure that it doesn't have the code at the end of it, but rather your name. And make sure your profile explains how you can help people. Next page. So this page here, I'm not going to go over just in the interest of time because it's pretty basic. But if you guys want these slides will be made available to you. And I go over kind of step by step how to customize your URL. But again, in the interest of time, let's skip this one, Cole. So what you also want to do is get a banner ad put in on your social media, right? I got a banner ad, nice and simple, just put Danny Pehar Cybersecurity Corner. I had one of my family members was kind of making fun of it and saying, oh, I hate the colors. It looks so ugly. Whether you like it or not, it stands out. And that really was my goal, right? And so so I got a banner ad I got to put on there. If you don't know how to do that, there are so many people in so many places that'll make you a banner ad for like $5, right? And it really then makes it pop, right? And the best part is once you put it on your LinkedIn, you can really use that same banner ad anywhere else. Page down, Cole. So put the same thing on my Twitter. Now, mind you, if any of you guys want to connect with me afterwards, so Twitter, I was very active with Twitter. You'll see at the point that I took that screen grab, those 30K followers. I've kind of taken a toxic break from Twitter. I find that Twitter has just gotten so insane over the last few years. It's gotten so political and so angry. I'm not angry and I'm not political. So kind of taking a break. So if you want to find me, don't find me on there. Find me on LinkedIn. But I do have that banner ad. And one more, Cole. And again, then I threw it up on YouTube. Hey, why not? I've already got it. It's the same banner ad, right? And again, just kind of tying that brand together, okay? Cole, page down, please. So let's also talk about making the most out of your community, right? So you're on social media, you're sharing information, and you've got a bunch of other people who are in the same part of life that you're in, that are starting out, trying something new. Why not connect with these guys and help each other out? Page down. So don't be afraid to ask your community to support a post, right? If you have a couple of friends, right, you have kind of an agreement, right? Hey, whatever I put up of your, I'll always support yours, you support mine. That's totally okay, right? I mean, we do this in the real world when we need support on something. Why not do it online, right? If someone is supporting your stuff, make sure to return the favor, right? Be nice and help them. Right. When I was approached to do this talk, I was approached by a gentleman named Shane Grisco, and we used to work together. And he said, Danny, can you do a talk for me? And I can't pay you. Right. And I said, you know what, as long as I'm not already working or booked on that date, I'm happy to do that talk. Right. And so definitely it's OK to ask for support, but you do want to also support others as well. Now, when you support it, make sure you read a post before you support it. And what I mean by that is I remember I was asked to help this one thing, and they were saying it some sort of Men's Day, I think it was called. And okay, kind of, Danny, we're doing this Men's Day thing. Do you want to help us, right? And I was like, yeah, that sounds, I thought it was like for testicular cancer, right? So I'm like, yeah, I'll support that. And I was talking to my wife about it, and I'm like, oh yeah, these guys, they want to do this thing about Men's Day. And she's like, whoa, hang on a second. And she's like, ask them the exact title of what this thing is, and then Google it. So I asked for the exact title. I Googled it. And you know what? It wasn't testicular cancer. It was actually some sort of anti-woman rally, right? And I was like, I don't know why they thought I'd be interested in this, but this is nothing that I want to participate in, right? And so definitely, if you're going to support something, I'm very big on supporting almost anything that anyone asks me to support, unless they're asking me to support hate or anti something. But you want to do yourself that favor as well, right? Read it before you're so likely to post it. I like being generous with my time. But yeah, there is sometimes definitely you can't support the wrong thing, and you don't want to do that, right? And if you want something from someone, if you're zeroing in on a VP, on a president, on a whatever, maybe it's somebody you want an investment from or a job from, or you have your own business, you want to sell them something, right? If they post something, show them some love, comment on it, right? People get a lot of likes on LinkedIn, but less so comments, right? And they tend to remember the names of the people that are commenting. So if you want to get in tight with someone, start commenting on their stuff. Right? And that way, the first time you reach out to them, you're not asking them for a favor. You've already shown them some love, right? But a great way to do it. And remember, the people that you are in school with, these are your future leaders. Be nice to these guys as well, because 10 years from now, 20 years from now, you guys are going to be running things, right? So stay tight. Don't just think, I'm only going to be nice to the VPs or the presidents. Be nice to your guys that you guys are on par with right now. Next slide, please. Let's talk real quick about getting on TV. Okay, I'm going to tell you what it is, what it isn't. Next slide. So the easiest way to get on TV is look for a morning local news show. Morning shows, a lot of them start at 5 a.m. and they go to 9 or 10. That is a lot of time to fill, and their stories are done in 3 to 4 minute segments. So they need a lot of different stories. Okay. Once you find out what your local morning show is, research the segment producer or producer of that show. Email them. Say, hey, listen, Connect to a story of timely relevance. If there's a story, people are talking about Russia and cybersecurity attacks, and you've got a story that you can comment on that, right? Build something together, put that in your email and say, I'd like to comment on the following, right? But also, if it's your first time, you got to prove you're good on camera, okay? So show a clip of yourself being interviewed. Show a mock interview. Get one made, put it in the email and say, hey, here's a link. Now, when we talk about understanding what our desired audience is looking for, guys, that's something, the TV world is something I know very well. What the desired audience of the TV world is looking for, you need to be quick, you need to be clear, and you need to be enthusiastic. If you go on my website, dannypehar.com, click on the media tab, watch a couple of my media interviews, because I can always get back whenever I want. See how I do it. See how I'm quick with my answers. I get in, I get out. Study that. Put that in your email. Do a mock interview of you doing the same thing, right? And say, hey, listen, guys, I want to come in. I want to talk about the following. Here's a clip of me, a sample mock interview, so you can see what I am on camera. Boom. Now you've got their attention. If you can prove that you can do it on TV, they'll love you. If you get in once on TV, you can keep coming back on TV, okay? Now, understand what TV is. Understand what it's not. What TV is not. You go on TV, no one's most likely going to see you live while on TV, right? TV has lost its lure in that sense. But for some reason, when you tell someone that you're on TV and you show a clip of it online, people take you extremely seriously, and you will see a bunch of doors will open up for you, right? And so many times I put up a TV clip. I put up one today, and a lot of talk. It generates a lot of talk on for my LinkedIn. And when I asked them, did you watch it on TV? Everyone's like, no, I didn't. I saw it when you posted it on LinkedIn, right? People aren't watching it, but they take it extremely seriously. Page down, Cole. So this slide here, you may remember from early on in the presentation. I didn't used to start my presentations with this page here, but I changed it when I was in one meeting and there was a bunch of serious people in the room, and I could see that, they seemed very distracted. And one of the guys introduced me, and he happened to mention that I was on TV, and I literally saw everyone change. All of a sudden, it was like I took control of the room. And after that, I'm like, I'm taking that screenshot, I'm baking it into my prezos, and people take you that much seriously. If you want to talk about job opportunities, you guys are in school now, you get yourself on TV talking about security, you post that on LinkedIn, man, doors are going to open up for you, okay? Page down. So let's really quickly talk about the job interview as we're running short on time here, right? I want you guys to remember, during your job interview, you are there to answer one question above all, and that question is, why should I hire you? And it's probably a question that they're never going to come right out and ask. But you need to understand, everything that you answer needs to tie back into that. It's always about, why should I hire you? Why should I care? And knowing that, firmly knowing that, will help you not get distracted. When I was leaving Allstream and going to TELUS, I took on the role at TELUS as the Director of Business Development for the cybersecurity team. And it was an important role for my career. And during that interview, I had done some comedy, and I had a couple of security events where I was just doing comedy, and I was kind of getting known for that. And the guy that was interviewing me, he was the president of TELUS Security, he had asked me, oh, so I hear you've done some comedy. And sure, I could have got distracted. I could have started telling some funny jokes. I could have went down that pathway. And I like, talking about comedy. But I was like, I do. And I go, and that's why people love working with me. That's why organizations love working with me. And that's why you're going to love working with me as well. I brought it right back to the main reason why I'm there. It's all about, why should I hire you? And a lot of times we forget that when we start getting asked questions and we go down a road we're not supposed to go down. Know your story and know how to tell it, right? A lot of times people don't put enough thought into, what's the story that I'm there to tell. We think, oh, sure, it's an interview, I'll just answer the questions, right? It's more than that. You have to go in with a perceived story in mind about you and that value. And remember what I said, try to do some research about what's the value they're looking for, and be sure to be able to tell that story. When your interview is over, ask for their contact info, right? Hey, this is great talking to you. Can I get your card? If you didn't already have it, okay? Send a follow-up thank you email after the interview. Don't ask them any questions in it. Don't ask them anything like that, but send them an email and just say, hey, I really enjoyed coming in today. Really had a wonderful chat. Thank you so much for your time. It was a pleasure talking to you. That's it, okay? Some guy gave me that tip. There was a job that I really wanted years back, And I came, I was really pumped about it. And I was talking to somebody else and I said, man, I really want this job. I hope I get it. And he goes, if you really want the job, here's what I'm going to tell you to do. Send them an email and just thank them, but don't ask them any follow-up questions. And I did that. The guy called me, I think 10 minutes after, and he offered me the job. And I really think it's because everyone else that went for the interview, nobody bothered sending a thank you. And I was the only guy that did. It was a fairly entry-level job, right? But yeah, that one tip helped get me that job, right? So remember, send that thank you, right? I do have an interview instructions doc if you guys want. I can make it available. I'll send it to Cole. He'll make it available, what have you. You definitely want to read that before you take your next interview. Cole, one more, please. Bringing the value in any situation. Let's do one more. Perfect. And you know what, Cole? This will be our last slide for today. Then we'll open it up for questions. Okay. So I talked about how to understand the value. I talked about how to market your value, convince others of your value from a basic point of view. I also talked about it from a more advanced social media, even on television, right? And I talked about, the couple of things that you might want to say to prep for your interview. But now let's talk about the beginning. You get your job summary, you land somewhere, and you are so new, you're so entry level, right? How do you actually bring that value when you're so entry level? I'll tell you how I did it when I first got my job, right? So first getting my job in cybersecurity, I didn't yet really truly understand what the leaders of the cybersecurity world were looking for. I didn't understand what my desired audience was looking for in that sense, but I did know at a more basic level what my desired audience were looking for, not as security leaders, but as simply as business leaders. And I'm telling you this, the most common thing that business leaders are looking for when they're looking to hire someone or looking to work with someone is, one, do they have a good attitude? Forget about security now, forget about tech, forget about specifics. Let's just talk about, is this person a nice person to work with, right? Are they going to roll their eyes every time you ask them to do something? Are they going to show you some type, if you're the person that smiles, if you're the person that says, yes, I'm going to do this for you, that will go so far. There was a guy that I hired one time while I was interviewing someone, and I was interviewing a few people, and this guy said, listen, I want this job so bad. If there's downtime, I'll mop the floors. And it wasn't a floor mopping job. It was a security job. But I was so impressed with his attitude. I hired him just because he said that. Be the person that brings that right positive attitude. But don't just do that with your superiors. I think some young people that I go over this lesson with, they get pretty good at understanding that for presidents and vice presidents, it's got to be for everyone. Because you might trick a few people if you're nice and have the right attitude for presidents and vice presidents, but you're a jerk to everyone else. But that will only last so long. And I'm telling you, it will implode on you. You want to bring that right attitude for those that are above you, for those that are on your same level, and even for those that you outrank, for those that are lower than you, right? Right attitude will go so far. The other one, follow the basics. Your boss asks you to come in at a certain time, come in at that time. Your boss asks you to send an assignment by a certain time, send an assignment by the time that they say it, or give them a reason why it can't be done, right? Sounds so basic, but nobody does this. I've gotten promotions just from doing that. There was one call very early on, I think like my first month into the job, and I was on a call with Toronto Police Services, and I had a bunch of their engineers, I had a bunch of my engineers from my company, all on the call, and we're talking about this one project that we're going to do together, and I'm getting nervous because I'm thinking I'm the only one that doesn't understand what anyone is saying because I knew nothing about security, okay? But I keep running the call as best as I can. So I'm like, okay, and what do you have to say about that? And what do you think? What do you think? And what do you think? And what's the time? And what works for you? And I'm running the call as best as I can, took down everyone's names, taking down dates, asking if everyone is okay. But I'm also doing that. I kind of have that fraud imposter, right? Imposter syndrome, where I start thinking I'm doing this because I literally can't talk about anything else. And so I hang up the phone, and I was really depressed after that call because I'm like, I didn't understand anything, and everyone knows it, and they all know I'm a fraud, right? But shortly after that, I get a call from the head of Toronto Police Services, and she tells me, Danny, I've never been on a call with that many people that was run as well as you run it. Thank you so much. I'm so glad that you are keeping us on track, and I'm so glad that you're part of this team. And I was like, well, look at that. I was like, all I was focusing on was the basics. But so few people are good at the basics. If you master the basics, so many times we worry about really being really good at amazing things. but let's be really good at the basic things, right? Running a call properly, showing up on time, being very clear and concise with what we're doing. That's really how you bring that value. And of course, the last thing is communication. And that's something, if you haven't noticed, but that's something that I've been subtly talking about throughout the entire presentation, right? If you are in a tech industry, cybersecurity or other, that means at the root of it, that is an industry based on thought leadership. All tech is based on thought leadership. You can have all the thought leadership in the world. If you cannot convince anyone of your content, if you cannot convince or communicate that thought leadership, you will lose out. So really start to focus and learn how to get better at your communication. I gave you a bunch of tips about communication throughout today's session about how to talk about a topic, how to answer those 4 or 5 questions, right? But at the very beginning, as you guys get your entry-level jobs, don't worry about being amazing. Don't worry about being the greatest tech expert at whatever you're doing. Worry about bringing the right attitude, following the basics, really nailing the basics, and being excellent at communicating what it is that you're doing. Okay, so Cole, I went 5 minutes over what we promised, but we got 10 minutes left for questions. Let's open it up.
That is no worries. I first want to just say, wow, what an excellent presentation. So everybody, thanks in the chat. And I want to say too, during that, you were receiving immense support. I think it's safe to say everyone enjoyed that presentation.
Awesome. Oh, that's great to hear.
I also got lots of value out of it. So first off, thank you for that. And with that being said, with 9 minutes and 45 seconds left, we have some user submitted questions. So the first one we're going to start off with is, what is the strangest cyber threat you had to go against?
Oh, that's a really good one. Man, there's been so many of them. I would say one of the strangest cyber threats I ever had to go against would have to be somebody had hacked a photocopier. And through hacking the photocopier, it was connected to the network. Through hacking the photocopier, they were able to get to something incredibly sensitive, and they were able to actually steal something from that organization. And you know, you think of laptops, you think of phones, you don't think of photocopiers, right? And that's just off the top of my head. I probably have way more stranger ones than that, so I apologize. But just I'm trying to think quickly because I'm seeing that timer keep going down. So, might not be the best one, but that's right now what I can think of.
Great response. We do have some few more here. Let me see. Is it true that being a cybersecurity expert is expensive because of the learning materials needed?
It can be very expensive, and it all depends on what aspect you want to go down. For me, one of the ways that I got around that was if you get a job at an organization, if you get some sort of expertise, you get a job at an organization, you can get a lot of the organizations to pay for those things, right? For me, the way I got around it was I noticed a lot of these courses that were offered by various vendors, by various what have yous, they would let you take the course for free. All that you would pay for was the test. You'd pay for the certification. So I got really good at finding all of those things, and I just wouldn't take the certification, right? So I got the info that I needed, and when it came time, all right, Danny, you got to pay for your certification. I'd say, no, thanks. I don't need the certification. I just need the info. And I would go learn to market my value, learn to bring my value, and then somebody would hire me based on the value that I was bringing, not based on my certification. That can't always be done, but that was a way that I got around it. There's a lot of different ways that you can get around that. Yeah.
Great response. What type of cybersecurity services can we provide to individual people, not to just companies?
So if you want to talk about individual people, a big thing there is awareness training, right? Teaching somebody how not to do what it is that they shouldn't be doing, right? The other thing is there are certain popular texts that's very popular with individuals. Password managers, that's one. VPN clients, that's another one. Multi-factor authentication, a type of technology, that's another one. And even some sort of basic firewall or basic anti-malware, antivirus. Those 4 things, as an example, if you had an e-commerce site, right, and you were to offer those 4 things, right, you could definitely, that's definitely a huge market for B2C in that sense.
For sure. One moment here, I'm just looking at the questions. Working in the cybersecurity field, what do people normally carry in their kit on a day-to-day basis other than a laptop or computer? What's your daily carry in the cybersecurity world?
You know what? It really depends on what aspect of cybersecurity you're dealing with, right? So if you look at what I mentioned, the understand the building blocks of your craft, right? So it's cybersecurity, it's identify, protect, detect, respond, recover, right? Sometimes some people might work in a field where they're doing all of it. Some people might work just in the protect and detect. Some people might just work in detect, right? So it really depends on what aspect. Like there's too many variations that I can give you. Right. For me, in the last few years or so, what I've really been focused on is I've been focused on the awareness side of things. Training companies and employees and even individuals. So for me, for my carry is it's very light. Right. I just need that information. Right. So sometimes it's a laptop. Honestly, sometimes it's not even a laptop. Right. But that really depends on what aspect of security you go down. Will depend on what you're carrying.
Okay. What are your greatest challenges as a cybersecurity expert?
So I would say my greatest challenges in what I'm always looking to do is to make sure that I'm always the guy that's staying on top of things, right? It is constantly changing. There's so many things happening in the world, and that I would say is definitely a difficult challenge. But I would also say that's also my greatest strength. I look at so many times where I made a move above people that I would argue are way more knowledgeable than me or way more certified than me or have more means than me, right? But maybe they missed something that's current, right? Whereas I'm always staying on top of that. So the work, in addition to whatever it is that I do for my career, whatever it is that I'm doing for business, I'm putting in about 1 to 2 hours of reading a night. Every night I'm reading about what's happening, what's in the news, that takes work. Right. But it's also a great strength to have because it'll put you above others who just aren't willing to put in that work.
Gotcha. We've got 4 minutes, 30 seconds. We've still got a good bit of questions. We'll just keep picking them off.
We'll bang them out. And then at 2 minutes, maybe we'll do the round, wind down at 2.
Gotcha.
It's going to get cut off.
I'm going to read this one here. Have you taken the certified ethical hacker test? If so, would you recommend, or what would you recommend to prepare?
I haven't taken that course, so I can't give you any recommendations, but I can tell you how I would prepare. Honestly, the same way I do anything. I would literally do an online search for what do you recommend to prepare for this test, right? Okay. I haven't been too big of a fan of getting certified, and I know a lot of people will disagree with me. I don't want to be controversial, but I honestly find I really stay true to what I said. If you're bringing the value, people aren't asking you what your certifications are if they're getting value from you. And if you learn to market it properly, I'm not saying to you not to do that. You got to make that decision yourself, but I'm not big on certifications.
Gotcha. So you heard that, folks. Bring the value and market it. As a person that is not the most consistent at communicating with others, how do you manage to improve communicating with others and be able to have as much charisma as yours?
So thank you for that. There's definitely a compliment in that question. One, I would say practice it. Practice with friends, practice with family, practice where it won't hurt you, right? Even if you don't have anything that you want to talk about, start talking about something so you can practice it. And two, try to follow a formula. So when I talked about the listing one thing, hey guys, I want to talk to you about this topic and I'm going to answer the following 4 questions. Practice that style of talking, but without telling your friends you're actually practicing on them. A lot of times I'll do that where I'll say something to somebody I want to say to a larger audience or whatever, and I don't tell them I'm practicing, but I'll hit them with my talk and I'll see how they react to it. You can get a lot of practice without anyone ever even knowing you're practicing, but just keep talking. The more you do it, you'll get it out there, and keep studying formulas for how to position your information. Like the one I talked about today, formulas are a big help in getting you to say the right thing at the right time. Great question.
Gotcha. I think we have time for one more quick one here. Is an antivirus still very necessary, or is Windows Defender enough?
It really depends, honestly, on your preference. But Windows Defender is really good. There are some that'll argue, some that are super cybersecurity folks that'll be like, no way, it's not good enough. You need a super antivirus, right? That's kind of a preference question. Right. So some will say yes, some will say no. For me, I use Windows Defender, and for me, that's good enough for me. But it depends if you're running an organization. It depends how much you're actually doing, and it depends how much data you're taking in. You might want to step it up above that. You might want to take some sort of antivirus.
Gotcha. Well, we have 1.5 minutes left here. I don't want to push you to get another one done, so I'm sorry to anyone else that I wasn't able to get their question. There is more good questions here, and I wish we could have answered them. So sorry to you guys, but I would suggest connect with Danny on LinkedIn. I'm sure he can answer questions, and follow his cybersecurity corner. He's got great tips for you. And I would like to thank you again on behalf of all the instructors, the organizing committee, the students, and myself. Thank you so much for an excellent presentation and for being here. And the chat is giving you immense support.
You know what? Before we get cut off, Cole, I will say thank you, Cole. And guys, let's make sure to connect. I love connecting with people that are getting into something new, that are looking to do something new, because you guys are the future leaders. And I've had this happen before with young people that I've talked to. Next thing I know, I'm doing business with them, right? And it's a beautiful thing. Cole, I already know you're going to be a huge success. And when you make your first $1 billion, I'm going to ask you to invest $100 million in whatever idea I have at the time. Right?
I'll guarantee that promise.
Let's make friends, and let's do, I'm confident in all you guys. You guys ask some great questions. And that way, when the time comes, we'll all be able to do business.
Gotcha. Yeah, the chat's going crazy for both me and you. And yeah, thank you again, Danny. It's been awesome. Everyone, please connect with myself and Danny on LinkedIn. And yeah, 17 seconds. Amazing presentation. Have a great day, Danny.
All right, Cole, you too. Take care, guys.
Thanks.
Be well. Be safe.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.